So, you're trying to solve the Is Valid Palindrome in JavaScript. I'm quite busy with the case at the moment, so allow my right-hand associate Caffeine to help you solve this one. Thanks, Al. This is Caffeine, and today we'll be talking about how to solve LeetCode problem number 125 in JavaScript, Valid Palindrome. We'll go over 3 approaches to solve it. The first is the brute force method. The second will be a more refined approach where I take my solution and come up with something that I think would work better. And the third will be looking for a highly upvoted community answer to, in theory, get the best solution. Now, this video should be pretty beginner friendly, but you should know at least some basic JavaScript, mainly what for loops and if and else statements are. Also in the description of this video, I'll post a GitHub and Google Doc link to the folder holding the solutions. All right, so let's get coding. So to quote Abraham Lincoln, if I was given 1 hour to solve a LeetCode problem, I would spend the first 45 minutes reading the description. But seriously, we need to understand what we're trying to write code for before we start trying to write code. I'll just read the description right quick. But a phrase is a palindrome if after converting all uppercase letters into lowercase characters and removing all non-alphanumeric characters, it reads the same forward and backward. Alphanumeric characters include letters and numbers. Given a string S, return true if it is a palindrome or false otherwise. And we have some examples here. So based on this description, we need to do 3 things. Based on the string that's inputted, we need to remove all non-alphanumeric characters. So anything that is not letters and numbers, we need to remove. Then we need to see if it's spelled forwards and backwards the same way. And we either return true or false. That leads us to the first solution, the brute force method. And this is how I always like to start solving LeetCode problems, as it gives me a really good rough draft to refine later. So if I'm given a string, I need to remove the punctuation and see if it's spelled the same forwards or backwards. The first thing I would do is remove the punctuation. The easiest way I could think to do that is a regular expression that looks for anything that is not A through Z or 0 through 9. The G here means it looks through the whole string, and the I means it ignores lowercase or uppercase. And then it assigns the whole thing to lowercase just to make it easier to compare things later on. And the result is a string that has no punctuation in it. Now, if I need to see if it's spelled the same forwards or backwards, the easiest way I could think to do that is to loop through the string backwards. So to start at the end and go towards the beginning and add each individual letter into another string, which will effectively be the string in reverse. And then finally, I will check my reverse string against the string that was inputted into the start with and see if they're equal or not. If they are, it's a palindrome, and if not, it's not. Return true or false accordingly. And since this solution has 1 for loop, it is a big O of n in terms of time complexity. So now we'll run it and see how well it does. Not too hot. One thing I have noticed is, to be honest, the LeetCode runtimes are not very reliable. I got everything from 20% to 70% on this. So for that reason, I'll explain the solutions that I make, which ones are better than the others, and the time complexity of them for those that are interested. That brings us to solution 2. The refined approach. So we already know we can get a solution by looping through the entire string, but there's got to be an easier way. It's at this stage that I find it helpful to speak to yourself what you're trying to do. Draw out diagrams that make sense to you. For me, what made sense was, if I'm trying to find if something is a palindrome, I start by comparing the first character in the string. We'll assign that to a variable called I, to the last character in the string. We'll assign that a variable J. Then I move to the second character in the string, and I will move here, and we compare that to the second to the last character in the string, J. And we keep doing this until we've compared all the characters, or they get into the middle here. And if anything doesn't match, of course, it's not a palindrome. Doing things this way could, in a best case scenario, result in half the amount of steps being done to complete it. So that being said, now that I have down what I'm trying to do conceptually, I'll put this into code. So feast your eyes on this absolute vision of a solution. We start off pretty similarly. We're still taking a string to check as the argument to our function, and we are still removing all the non-alphanumeric characters with a regular expression. This time around, though, we're doing things a little different in the for loop. We're assigning 2 variables, I and J. I starts at the beginning of the string and moves forward. J starts at the end of the string and moves backwards. And right here we say, as long as I is less than J, we're going to move on to the rest of the logic here. Because if I is equal to J or even greater than J, they've already moved past each other, and we know we don't need to check anymore. And the condition we check for is, if for any reason I doesn't match J, This is not a palindrome, so we're going to return false, and otherwise we're going to return true. So we will run this, and you can see quite a bit better. Again, this isn't the most reliable source. It does make me feel good to see big numbers. And this is still technically big O of n. This solution could, in theory, run in half the time in a lot of cases. And that brings us to solution 3. The community upvoted solution. And I reviewed a lot of solutions, but I think this one performed the best and is the most interesting to talk about. So this person's solution is actually similar to my previous one, but instead of using a for loop, he uses a while loop, which I think is a better idea because we don't know how many times it's going to run. And he also uses shorter variable names, which I think do make a lot of sense. The first thing he does is remove all the non-alphanumeric characters with a regular expression, just like I did. Then he makes sure it's lowercase. Then we assign 2 variables here, L and R, which just mean left and right. L starts at the beginning of the string and R starts at the end. And here's where we do the while loop because we don't know how many times this is going to run. We want to make sure L, or the left index here, is less than R because again, if it's equal to or greater than, they passed each other. We don't need to check that anymore. If the character at L does not equal the character at R, we're going to return false because it's not a palindrome. Here, he makes sure we increase L because we're going from the beginning to the end of the string, and then we decrease R because we're going from the end to the beginning this way. And then if it makes it all the way through this and it matches every time, it's going to return true. And we'll run this, and that's pretty good. So yeah, that's it for the third solution. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and if you'd like to see more LeetCode problems, or if there's anything else in JavaScript that you would like to see a video on, let me know in the comments below.
The palindrome case has been solved.